The galaxy had learned one truth about humans when they go quiet. It is never because they are weak. It is because they are waiting. For more than 100 years, no human fleet had crossed the great trade lanes. No colonies had been founded beyond their borders, and no messages had been sent to the Galactic Council. Some called it peace. Others, the older ones who remembered, called it a warning. On a distant station called Corel-4, ships from dozens of worlds came and went, hauling cargo, trading goods, and sharing news. The air was always thick with the scent of fuel, metal, and too many species living in one place. It was here that an old freighter captain named Rinvara sat in a quiet corner of a docking lounge, staring into his drink. He had seen war. He had seen what humans could do when provoked. And he knew the younger generations had no idea what danger still lived out there in the dark. Across the room, a group of miners laughed loudly, telling stories of their latest trip near the human border. One of them, drunk on station ale, leaned forward and said a name in a low voice. The moment it left his lips, the mood changed. Conversations stopped. Even the background hum of the station seemed quieter. Rinvara's hand tightened on his cup until the metal bent. "You fool, Rin," muttered, standing and walking toward them. "Do you know what you just said?" The miner, a scaled reptilian from the Korth Dominion, blinked. "It's just a name. It's an old story. Why should I fear a word?" Rin's voice was low, but there was steel in it, because the last time someone spoke that name out loud, 3 systems burned. He looked around. Every older alien in the lounge was watching, silent and tense. The younger ones shifted uneasily, not understanding why. Before the miner could answer, the station's lights flickered. The main holoscreens on the walls flashed white, then black, and for a moment there was only static. Then a voice came, through calm, deep, unmistakably human. "Leave. Now." The sound cut through the air like a blade. The station's background chatter was gone. Everyone stood frozen, staring at the screens. The voice repeated, each word heavier than the last. "Leave now." The screens went dark again. A cargo handler dropped his tools. Someone at the bar swore in a language no one understood. "Rin." Vara closed his eyes for a moment and let out a slow breath. "It begins," he said quietly, "far away, beyond the mapped borders." An old human listening post came alive for the first time in decades. Its sensors turned outward, tracking movement. Across light years, in the control chamber, a single operator, an old man with silver hair and a uniform patched from another ear, watched the data scroll past. His comms panel was already lit with alerts. Unknown ships, multiple jump signatures, headed straight. For human space, he tapped a button and spoke into his headset. "Contact High Command, code black." In the depths of space, the alien fleet moved with confidence. They were a mix of mercenaries and scouts from smaller factions lured by rumors of undefended human systems rich in resources. Their leader, a pale-skinned being with 4 arms and a crown of bone spikes, laughed when his second in command reported the warning broadcast. "They're bluffing," the leader said. "Humans have been silent for a century. Their fleets are rust. Their weapons are old. We'll take what we want before they even react." He did not see the small shadow following them, cloaked and silent, slipping between asteroids and debris fields. The human ship's hull absorbed almost all light, its engines whisper quiet. Inside, its crew sat in darkness, eyes on their displays, waiting for the command to strike. Back on Corel-4, rumors spread fast. Some said the voice was a hoax. Others whispered that the ghost fleet was waking. The older ones did not speak much, but their eyes were full of the same fear they had carried for decades. That night, Rinvara was leaving the station when a message came through on his personal comm. No sender, no origin. Just 2 words: do not follow. He stopped in the corridor, the message flickering in the dim light. He thought about the miner, about the names spoken aloud. He thought about the human voice that had cut through the station. Somewhere in the black, a storm was building, and this time he was not sure the galaxy was ready for it. At the edge of human space, the alien fleet crossed the invisible border. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then, without warning, every ship's sensors went blind. Communications died, or jump drives failed. In the sudden darkness of space, faint shapes began to appear along, silent warships that no one had seen in generations. The leader of the alien fleet stood at his command chair, his throat tight. These were not the rusted relics he had imagined. The black holes drank in starlight, their weapon ports glowing faint red, like the eyes of predators that had been sleeping too long. A final transmission came through. Audio only from an untraceable source. It was the same human voice as before, but this time, slower. You were warned. And then the stars lit up. The name had been spoken. And word of it spread faster than light across the outer rim. On every freighter, in every cantina, in every shadowed corner of the galaxy's ports, someone whispered the story of what happened on Kirel 4. Some claimed the human warning was a fake, an old recording meant to scare smugglers. Others swore they had seen the holoscreens flicker with their own eyes, heard the voice echo in their bones. But those who had lived through the last war didn't speak. They didn't need to. The fear in their faces told enough. On the central archive station of Vallis Prime, deep within the Galactic Council's protected sector, a historian named Dren Talos worked alone in a sealed vault. His skin was pale from years under artificial light, and his thin fingers moved quickly over the old data scrolls. He had been chasing a ghost for half his life, a word erased from history, a species erased from existence. And tonight, he thought, he might have finally found it. The scroll in front of him was locked behind 6 layers of encryption, each older than the last. Most historians wouldn't even try to break through. They knew the Council did not erase history without reason. But Dren was stubborn. He wanted the truth. When the final seal broke, his console dimmed, and a string of ancient text appeared. The symbols shifted, translating into Galactic Standard. At the bottom of the page was the name, short, sharp, carved into his mind in an instant. He whispered it aloud without thinking. The air in the vault felt suddenly heavy. The lights above him flickered. The walls themselves seemed to hum with a low vibration. Dren blinked, shook his head. Just my imagination, he told himself. But deep down, he knew better. 2 hours later, he left the vault, carrying nothing but a small encrypted data crystal in his coat pocket. The station's wide corridors were quiet at this hour, the hum of power systems the only sound. Noticed the 2 figures following him until it was too late. They moved with unnatural graystall, wrapped in dark cloaks, faces hidden. The moment Dren stepped into the transit lift, one of them pressed a blade to his back. Cold metal, you. Read the name, a voice hissed in his ear. It wasn't a question. Dren tried to speak, but the blade pressed harder. Why? The voice demanded. Why say it out loud? I needed to know, Dren stammered. The galaxy deserves to know. The second figure stepped closer. And for a moment Dren saw their FISA mask of smooth black metal with no eyes, no mouth. Just a single engraved mark where eyes should be. You've already said too much, the first figure whispered. The lift doors opened, and Dren was shoved forward into a dim service corridor. He stumbled, turned and saw the blade rise. Pain flashed white in his chest, his breath catching in his throat. The last thing he saw before darkness swallowed him was the data crystal rolling from his hand, bouncing once, twice, then disappearing into a drain slot in the floor, somewhere far above. In the great spire of the council chamber, a debate was raging. A young counselor from the Zoran Confederacy demanded that the border with human space be opened for mining. They have been silent for a century, the counselor said. We cannot fear ghosts forever. But across the chamber, an elder counselor rose slowly to his feet. Skin was scarred from old burns, one arm replaced with an old model cybernetic limb. His voice trembled with both age and memory. It is not ghosts we fear, he said. It is memory. And memory, if you wake it, becomes fire. Before the young counselor could respond, the lights in the chamber dimmed. Sound, low and steady, came from every speaker in the building. 3 words. Human, calm, absolute. You were warned. The counselors froze. No one moved. And high in the shadows of the chamber ceiling, unnoticed, a tiny cloaked drone withdrew silently into the vents. Its mission complete, far from Valis Prime, drifting in the void. The alien fleet that had crossed into human space slowed its advance. Not because of battle, not because of damage, but because every single one of their long-range com screens has gone black at the same time. Then a single word appeared on them. The name and the crew could feel, though they didn't understand, how that somewhere something had just started moving toward them. The Galactic Council chamber had been silent for hours after the human warning broadcast. It was the kind of silence that weighed heavy, pressing down on every delegate, every aide, every guard. But silence never lasted long in politics. By the next cycle, the chamber was full again, the air sharp with arguments. Some counselors called the warning an empty threat, a relic from a war too far in the past to matter. Others demanded that all expeditions toward human space be halted immediately. The voices rose, bouncing off the high crystal walls. A transmission officer entered mid-session, carrying a datapad clutched tightly to his chest. Scaled skin was pale, his eyes fixed on the floor. He handed the pad to the presiding speaker, who read the message, frowned, and without a word handed it to the security chief. "It's from the border patrols," the security chief said aloud. "3 mining ships have gone missing in Sector 9. No distress calls, no debris." The young counselor from the Zoran Confederacy, bold, restless, and proud, stood with a smirk. "Probably pirates. The humans don't even patrol that sector anymore." Before the presiding speaker could respond, every light in the chamber flickered, then steadied. A heartbeat later, the entire chamber's sound system came alive on its own. Static hissed for a moment, then cleared. "You are treading on dangerous ground." The voice was human, calm, clear, unmistakable. And it wasn't just in the chamber, it was everywhere. On every ship in orbit, every comm system in the sector, every private and public frequency. Delegates looked at each other. There, faces pale. Some covered their mouths, as though afraid to breathe too loud. Somewhere, deep beneath the council complex, a communications officer tried to trace the signal. Her fingers flew over the console. "Origin unknown," she reported, her voice shaking. It's not coming from a single point. It's coming from everywhere at once." Above the planet, in the cold dark of space, a single unmanned relay satellite rotated slowly. It had been dead for more than 100 years or so, the council believed. Now, it glowed faintly, transmitting in frequencies older than most civilizations. In the galaxy, on a mining world near the human border, the crew of an ore hauler prepared to load their cargo. Their captain, a thick-shelled insectoid, was still laughing about the ghost broadcast they'd heard earlier. "Humans are long gone," he told his crew. "And if they're not, what can they do? They're one system. We're the galaxy." Didn't finish the sentence. The comm officer suddenly froze, her antennae twitching. "Captain," she said, "we've lost contact with the outer perimeter ships." Then the ground shook. From the darkness beyond the asteroid belt, something moved slow, deliberate. Not a fleet. Not a ship formation. Just shadows against the starlight, large enough to hide moons. The captain squinted at the view screen. "Magnify." The image sharpened. Black holes, jagged like broken glass, sliding silently into position. No running lights. No markings. Just the faint red glow of something deep within them. "Identify," the captain barked. The comm officer didn't answer. She was staring at her console, her mouthparts trembling. They're not broadcasting any ID, but their whole signatures. She swallowed hard. They matched the war records. The old war, the human war. Before the captain could give the order to retreat, the ore hauler's systems went dead. Every light, every screen, every engine. The last thing the crew heard was that same calm human voice, now much closer, as if it were speaking directly into their ears. You were warned. The galaxy didn't know it yet, but the first line had been crossed. And somewhere out there, humanity had just decided to start moving. In the cold stretches of space beyond the official charts, the salvage crews of the Outer Rim worked in silence. They had stumbled across a debris field so vast it seemed endless, twisted metal, shattered hulls, drifting weapons platforms. The wreckage was ancient, the scars of its battles older than most living civilizations. Kavrek Das, captain of the salvage ship Black Lantern, floated in the command chair as the scanning drones reported in. No active systems, his engineer said. Overcomes radiation levels. Still dangerous in some pockets, but nothing lethal if we stay cautious. Kavrik grinned. Dangerous means valuable. Let's strip what we can. The crew moved in, guiding small work pods between the broken hulks. Every so often, they'd pass a fragment bearing an unfamiliar design, a style of shipbuilding none of them could recognize. It was dark, sharp-edged, designed for war and nothing else. Then one of the pods called in, "Captain, I think I've found something." On the viewer, a massive hull appeared from behind a drifting cruiser.
Why serial difficulty? Where
Whole, untouched by decay. A black spear-shaped warship nearly a kilometer long without a single scorch mark. No lights, no visible damage. It just
floated.
The engineer frowned. That's impossible. Nothing survives this long without maintenance. Kavrik's grin faded. Bring the pod back. Now. But it was too late. The work pod pilot, curious and reckless, had already maneuvered closer. His voice came overcomes a whisper. It's like it's sleeping. A faint red light appeared along the warship's hull. It's just one, then dozens, like eyes opening in the dark. The black vessel shifted position with a slow, predatory grace. No engines flared, no thrusters fired. It simply moved. Back on the Black Lantern, alarms screamed. Unknown energy spike. It's scanning us. Before Kavrik could issue an order, the warship vanished from their sensors. One moment it was there, the next it was gone, as though it had slipped into a shadow that didn't exist. The work pod pilot's signal cut off mid-breath, and then the wreckage around them began to move. Across the debris field, other black ships rose from their long sleep. Some small and fast, others vast and heavy, their hulls absorbing every glimmer of starlight. The ghost fleet had awakened. A signal burst across the Cumsold, encrypted, carrying a language most of the crew didn't even recognize. But one word, one terrible word, translated instantly into every tongue: the forbidden name. It was spoken once, broadcast galaxy-wide, as if daring someone to say it back. On Corel 4, Rinvara heard it and froze. In the council chamber, the older delegates lowered their heads. In the alien fleet that had crossed into human space, the leader snarled in confusion, not understanding why his bridge crew looked suddenly afraid. The ghost fleet did not pursue the salvage ship. It didn't need to. Instead, it formed a line at the very edge of the human border, unmoving, silent. The alien warlord Vekthar had always believed the stories about humanity were nothing more than fear wrapped in myth. To him, the warnings about the forbidden name were the kind of campfire tales old soldiers told to frighten recruits. But when word of the ghost fleet's appearance reached his stronghold, His first reaction wasn't fear, it was curiosity. From the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Fist, he studied the grainy sensor images sent by scouts. Black ships, silent, lined up along the human border, like predators watching prey. Impressive, he said with a smirk. But ships are just metal. Metal breaks. His officers shifted uncomfortably. My lord, the border is clear for now. Perhaps we should Vec. Thar slammed a clawed hand on the console. But we will. Test them. Send in a strike force. Small enough to probe, strong enough to break anything they put in our way. The fleet moved toward the human line with shields raised and weapons hot. From orbit above a dead moon, the Iron Fist's tactical screens lit with incoming data. The Ghost Fleet didn't move. Not even when the alien ships closed within weapons range. Fire, Vecthar ordered. Blinding lances of plasma and rail. Rounds tore through the empty space between the fleets. Some shots struck the black holes yet. There was no explosion, no shudder, not even the faintest sign of damage. It was like firing into the ocean. Direct hits, an officer reported. Confused, no effect. Then the human ships moved. Slowly, almost lazily, as if they had all the time in the world. The first counterattack came without warning. There's no glowing buildup of weapons, no obvious targeting locks, just sudden, precise destruction. The lead alien destroyer vanished in a silent flash of light. The second was torn in half by an invisible force. The rest of the formation scrambled to escape, but something was interfering with their drives. Panic spread across the alien comms. Our systems are failing. Shields down. We can't jump. Vecthar's eyes widened. He had expected a fight, not an execution. Before he could order a retreat, the Iron Fist's bridge lights dimmed. The voice came through every speaker on the ship. Calm, human, run. Vecthar froze. The voice wasn't shouting. It wasn't angry. It was simply telling him the truth. If he didn't leave now, there wouldn't be a ship left to command. He didn't need telling twice. The surviving ships limped back across the border, leaving behind wreckage and silence. Hours later, salvage drones from his fleet returned to investigate what remained of the destroyed vessels. They found nothing. No wrecks. No debris. No crew. It was as if the ships had never existed at all. Vecthar sat alone in his quarters, replaying the moment the human voice had spoken to him. He realized something chilling when the humans told you to run. It wasn't a warning. It was a mercy. But mercy only came once, in the farthest depths of the galactic core. Beneath the surface of a frozen moon lay the oldest archive in known space. Built long before the current council even existed, it held records so ancient they had been forgotten by most of the galaxy. Whole civilizations had risen and fallen without ever knowing the archive was there. The alien scientist Morik Val had spent decades searching for it. His colleagues thought him obsessed, maybe even unstable. But Morik knew there were things the galaxy had buried, things connected to the whispers about humanity, the forbidden name, and the war no one dared describe. And now, with the Ghost Fleet awake and the borders burning, he could no longer resist the truth. He descended into the frozen caverns alone, his breath clouding in the cold, guided only by the flicker of his wrist lamp. The deeper he went, the quieter it became. His comlink lost signal. Even the hum of his equipment seemed swallowed by the ice. Finally, he reached a door of black alloy, untouched by time. Alien symbols, some he recognized, some far older, were etched into its surface.
Ow.
One warning glyph stood out. Do not open, Morik. Opened it. Inside, the chamber was vast and silent, lined with crystalline data pillars that glowed faintly as he approached. His fingers trembled as he activated one, and holographic projections flickered to life battlefields lit by fire. Cities turned to glass, fleets burning in orbit. The footage was not from a dozen wars. It was from one human ship's moved through. The chaos like shadows, faster and sharper than anything the galaxy fielded today. Their weapons didn't just destroy, they erased. No debris, no survivors. It's just empty space where life had been. Marik's breath quickened. Then, in one recording, he saw them, the alien species whose name was now forbidden. Tall, armored, with eyes like molten gold. He watched them strike first, confident, arrogant. And then he saw humanity's reply. Entire star systems vanished. In days, he realized then why the name had been erased. It wasn't just to protect history. It was to protect the galaxy from remembering what humans did to those who crossed them. One last file pulsed for attention. Morik opened it, and a voice filled the chamber, calm, human, direct. If you are hearing this, then you have made the same mistake they did. Morik stumbled back, heart pounding. The voice continued, "Do not speak their name. Do not enter our space. And if you have already done either." The hologram shifted to show the Ghost Fleet weapons glowing faintly in the dark. "Then you will see us soon."
Apt!
Morik grabbed the data crystal from the pillar and ran. He didn't care about the cold anymore. He didn't care about the danger of climbing back to the surface. I had to warn the Council. The galaxy needed to know what was coming. But as he emerged into the blinding light of the frozen moon's surface, his comlink crackled. A voice, the same one from the archive, whispered into his ear, "You shouldn't have looked." The rescue team found the frozen archive days later. There was no sign of Morik Valani, his footprints leading to the door, and no footprints leading out. The name was spoken openly for the first time in centuries, and it echoed through the galaxy like a hammer striking a bell. Emperor Karvok of the Sithir Dominion stood before his war council, his sharp eyes burning with anger and ambition. "We cannot live in fear of shadows forever," he declared. "It is time to unite the galaxy and strike the humans before they strike us." The room filled with murmurs of agreement and caution. Some whispered that provoking humanity again was madness. Others, hungry for power and revenge, cheered. Karvok raised his hand. "We have one chance to end this. Send the fleets. Gather the armies. We march on human space." Within hours, fleets from dozens of allied worlds assembled, their ships bristling with weapons and armor. But even as they prepared, strange signals disrupted their communications interference that no technology could explain. On board the flagship Dreadspire, the admiral, a veteran with a long scar across his cheek, watched. The strange readings grow stronger. "Our ships are losing sync," he reported. "Systems are failing. Something is interfering with our networks." Karvok slammed his fist on the table. "Push forward. Show the humans that we will not bow." The fleets crossed the border. First it seemed the humans would not respond. Then the first warship disappeared, not destroyed, gone. Panic spread through the fleets. Their one steady advance became chaotic as one by one ships vanished. No distress calls, no debris, just silence. On the command bridge, the admiral's eyes widened as a calm human voice echoed through the ship's comms. "You have one chance. Leave now." The words were not shouted, they were not angry. They were a simple truth. The fleets began to retreat, but the damage was done. The alliances formed in fear and desperation. Former enemies pledged to stand together, if only to survive the coming storm. As the human message spread, the galaxy grew quiet once more. No one dared speak the forbidden name aloud. The fear was not just of war, but of what humanity represented, a power that waited in silence, ready to strike with a force no one could imagine. Emperor Karvok stared at the stars, knowing that the last mistake had been made, that the reckoning was coming. The war ended before it began. It was so quick, so precise, that few outside human space even saw it happen. On the day the fleets gathered on the edge of human territory, expecting a long, bloody campaign, all they found was silence. Then, like a storm breaking without warning, human warships appeared black and deadly. Moving with impossible speed and coordination, the alien armadas were shattered in hours. Entire fleets disappeared without a trace. The few survivors refused to talk about what they saw, their minds shattered by the horror. Ships were ripped apart by weapons that left no scars, attacks that struck before targets even registered them. After the battle, the galaxy fell into a fearful quiet. The name that had been spoken once again vanished from every record, every holodatabase, every spoken word. It was as if humanity had wiped it clean from existence. In the ruins of a shattered command ship, a lone human soldier stood among broken consoles and darkened corridors. He looked out a shattered viewport at the stars, his face calm but eyes fierce. He whispered the forbidden name once more, not to threaten, but to remember. Then he turned and walked into the shadows. No one dared speak that name again. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was not to be tested. Not again.